Chapter 11. The Mind of the Body. Our problem is to arouse sufficient power to lift up the whole consciousness until we see with an understanding heart. The mind of the body is the objective mind, finite mind, the mind of the flesh, the carnal mind, the natural mind, the intellect, the self-choosing mind, the willful mind, the personal mind, the mind of self-determination, of volition and will. Actually, there is but one mind with three distinct phases of activity which are called conscious, subconscious, and superconscious, the mind of the body, the mind of the soul, and the mind of the spirit. And the three are one. They are one because a careful analysis of the three reveals the fact that they act and interact upon each other. The objective mind, which is also called conscious mind, is that phase of the mental activity which relates man to the outer world of appearance, to his personality, and to his environment. This phase of mind has also been called the sense mind, and has been referred to in the Bible as through a glass darkly. Being governed by the law of alternation, this mind necessarily apprehends everything in pairs of opposites, good and evil, life and death, health and sickness, wealth and poverty, etc. The personal mind, being dual in its nature, has accepted both extremes, which explains our illusion of separation. The objective mind is man's erroneous conception of himself. It is also his spiritual self unrealized. It is what he knows about himself. It is also his power to unknow. The fleshly-minded man cannot deny that he is imperfect as he knows himself in the personality or fleshly mind. Judging by appearances, his consciousness is lacking in completeness and wholeness. The objective mind, unrelated to spirit, is but partially conscious of itself. Knowing only the personality or outward and physical form, it is limited in its expression. Sin, therefore, is a fact of our personality, but it is not the truth of us. The truth is that God and man are one, but until we have unified ourselves with this truth, recognize that spirit is the only power in our lives, we cannot be free from the separate self. Only as we bring the body and soul together can we realize the spirit of unity. God and man are forever one, but God is never man, and man is never God. Self-consciousness, divorced from spirit, is chiefly personal and objective. It must be redeemed by our expansion into the full and perfect consciousness of Christ through an habitual and positive response to the good. In spirit, realization of one presence and power, man is perfect and whole. The contradiction is in the objective mind, which is God's mind unrealized, between appearance and reality, between what we know about ourselves and what spirit knows about us. So then with the mind, spirit, I myself serve the law of God, but with the flesh the law of sin. For to be carnally minded is death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace. It was at the objective mind that St. Paul said, Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, and of the Spirit that he said, Be perfectly joined together in the same mind and in the same judgment, which is the right use or relationship to the only mind we have, using it in the right way, so to speak. The purpose of metaphysical science is to teach man how to live consciously in immediate and personal relationship with spirit, always aware of its presence with him. Before we can instruct the subconscious mind through which the law works, we must reconstruct our ways of thinking. If we have used the principle destructively, we must now learn to use it constructively. We shall always attract to us those things which are like our thought or the consciousness in which we work. The objective man is the body and personality. The objective mind is man's consciousness of himself. Conscious mind is the mind you are reading right now. It is the spirit of you because it is the medium through which you reach the subconscious mind, and is the instrument through which you discover spirit. The only mind we ever use is the mind of God. Our mind will become divine when we use it in the right way. When we use it constructively, we get good results. When we use it destructively, we get evil results. The mind of the body is the mind that must be renewed, or rightly related to spirit, before we can enter the kingdom of heaven. The secret of having all our needs supplied is to bring our human mind and will into subjection to the divine mind and will. Job recognized the necessity of this surrender when he said, "I know that thou canst do everything, and that no thought can be withholden from thee." That was Job's acknowledgment of the supremacy of spirit, and we read of him that the Lord gave Job twice as much as he had before. When we put ourselves and our affairs completely in God's hands, then the truth will be demonstrated in our lives. Let us remember, however, that we cannot employ divine law with the unnatural processes of the human mind. Jesus Christ is now here, raising me to his conscious of divine understanding, and all my mental activities are spiritual. Chapter 12. The Mind of the Soul. God-mind is, under the law of thought, constantly seeking to release its perfection in you. The psychologist tells us that all mental states are followed by bodily activity of some sort. All states of mind, even mere thoughts and feelings, are motor to their consequence. The tendency of every thought is to express itself as an effect. The quotation above means that our habitual conscious states of mind become subconscious states, and that subconscious states become conscious or objective states. In other words, the personality reproduces all the beliefs of the soul. The subconscious mind is the mind of the soul. The subconscious mind receives impressions from the conscious mind and acts upon them. It is also the place where our thoughts, mental pictures, and impressions go and eventually return to us as memory. The dictionary defines subjective as the impression which an object makes on the mind. The idea or concept is the impression which the mind receives. The spirit is conscious mind. The soul is subconscious mind, and our consciousness of God is superconscious mind. The conscious mind is the knower. The subconscious mind is the receiver and actor, the doer and the executor. Every object comes into consciousness in a twofold way, as simply thought of, that is, as perceived or conceived, and as admitted or denied, that is, as believed or disbelieved. The trinity of mind is recognition, realization, and revelation, word, law, and effect, spirit, soul, and body, thought, feeling, and action, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, life, mind, and form. The subconscious mind is always obedient to the conscious mind, and man, by thinking, can bring into his experience whatsoever he desires, if he thinks correctly and becomes a living embodiment of his thoughts. This is not done by holding thoughts, but by knowing the truth. The rule to remember is that everything that goes into the subconscious mind must come out of it as an experience. The personality is but the sum total of man's subconscious beliefs. It permeates every atom of his being through and through. The expression of the subconscious mind can be changed only through deep feeling or realization of the truth. If one would change to a higher order of consciousness, he merely changes his habits of response. Instead of receiving his knowledge from the outer world of appearances, he turns within to reality or truth. The subconscious mind is at work constantly carrying on all the involuntary functions of the body: digestion, glandular secretions, assimilation, circulation, respiration, and serves to repair the wear and tear of the conscious thinking. It does all this without the conscious thought or will of man. It knows how to transmute the various elements of food into flesh and blood so as to maintain perfect health in the body. It has unlimited power for acquiring all the blessings of life and of keeping the body in a perfect state of health. If we could trust our whole lives to the Spirit working through the subconscious mind, just as we trust the mechanism of our bodies to it, there is nothing we could not accomplish. Drawing its inspiration from God, it has all the wisdom of all the ages past. It is always willing and competent to give us anything we desire, provided we are rightly related to what we are seeking. Being always obedient to the conscious thought and will of man, it can be trained to do anything. Our work is not to change the action of the subconscious mind, but to bring it into a right relationship with God. If it is at present perpetuating disagreeable characteristics, traits, heredities, and beliefs, we can change those manifestations by the refinement of our conception. It is natural for the subconscious mind to express perfection. It is unnatural for it to express imperfection. Defects in consciousness are but the result of imperfect subconscious training. A man can change his heredity only as he changes his subconscious belief. This is done by knowing the truth that I and my Father are one. Remember that it is the mental antecedent of your problem that you have to deal with and not the effect. It is quite impossible to treat unpleasant facts or conditions out of existence so long as we still nurture the conscious or mental state which caused it. Defective conditions can be annihilated only as we remove the beliefs that sustain them. They can be displaced only by a greater realization of the truth. When the truth becomes motor or habitual in its response, it will not only remove all support from evil, but will do away with the demonstration of evil. Our freedom, therefore, is dependent upon our ability to build upon something in consciousness which is big enough to displace the negative thoughts or demonstrations which have been holding us in bondage. Renewing the mind is a scientific procedure. When the subconscious work is properly done, the objective manifestations must conform. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. Chapter 13. The Mind of the Spirit. Blessed is he that hath part in the first resurrection. Thou shalt be priest of God and of Christ. The divine order in revealing the truth is from the conscious mind to the subconscious mind, and from the subconscious mind to the spirit or the superconscious mind. That was not first which is spiritual, but that which is natural or outward, and afterwards that which is spiritual inward. God accommodates his revelation to our realization or capacity to receive it. Jesus explained our failure to receive the Spirit as due to our unbelief or our inability to recognize his presence, and for this same reason the natural man receiveth not the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness unto him. Neither can he know them, because they are spiritually discerned. Unless our subconscious minds are open to the Spirit, they can only believe that which is outward. Jesus said, Know no man after the flesh, and call no man on earth your father. Coming by way of manifestation is the way of disappointment and death. Our first knowledge of Christ is after the outward form of Jesus or the flesh, but he said, Call me not good. Jesus was the personality of God, but it was only when the physical Jesus was taken away from the disciples that the Christ became an intimate and vivid reality to their souls. We must follow on until we have knowledge of him in the Spirit, until we can say with the Apostle, Though we have known Christ after the flesh, yet now, henceforth, know we him no more. Our first knowledge of Christ, being revealed by the personality of Jesus, comes with observation. The second comes by realization and revelation of the presence within us, without any objective manifestation. The first in order is the personality of Jesus, known in history. The second is a divine revelation known only in consciousness. In the first, we worship God. In the second, we understand God. By the mind of Christ, we have a boldness to enter into the holiest by the blood, spirit life of Jesus, by a new and living way, which he hath consecrated for us through the veil, that is to say, his flesh. It is only within Christ's consciousness that our desires find fulfillment on the manifest plane. It is only in Christ's consciousness that we can know God. By staying the mind on spirit, we are fulfilling Paul's admonition to let that mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus. Not until we lose sight of the outward form are we ready to receive spiritual revelation. Jesus said to his disciples, It is expedient for you that I go away. For if I go not away, the Holy Spirit will not come unto you. But if I depart, I will send him unto you. It is not until we cease to know Christ after the things of the world, using our power to get loaves and fishes, that we are ready to receive him as the quickening Spirit. It is the Spirit that quickeneth, the flesh profit nothing. But if I go, I will come again and receive you unto myself. He taketh away the first, personality, that he may establish the second, Christ or Spirit. Let us not forget that the way into the holiest of all was not yet made manifest. The mind of Spirit is the mind of Christ. It is the clear consciousness which one experiences when he is absent from the body of related thinking. He is then present with the Lord or Spirit. Spiritual consciousness is the consciousness of Spirit, of wholeness, completion, and perfection. It is an enlarged edition of subconsciousness. It is the objective mind turned inward to the eternal consciousness which is God's expression of himself. Our conception of personality is all that stands between us and Spirit. Spiritual consciousness is latent in us all. It takes possession of us to the degree that we die to or renounce and lay down the personal consciousness and everything which it represents. Leave all and follow me. We must do this until personality has no more power over us. Resurrection is a new way of thinking and feeling. Spirit is a realization of all things, and of necessity will include a new consciousness of the body. The requisite skill for living in spiritual consciousness comes through practice. It can be acquired only as one constantly, consistently, and persistently thinks, lives, and acts according to the principles of truth. Sporadic effort is worse than no effort at all. We do not marvel at the instantaneous demonstrations of the accomplished athlete, musician, or mathematician, but we are astonished and nonplussed because our spiritual demonstrations demand an equivalent amount of preparation. Our imperfections and limitations have come to us as a result of our ignorance or misapplication of the principle of truth. They can be corrected only by the understanding and proper application of these same principles. To think the truth, live the truth, and act the truth is to receive its reward. That which we seek is seeking us. It can come to us only as we make room for it in our minds. Relying upon the promise of God, my imperfection is swallowed up in perfection. Chapter 14. God is Spirit. And they shall not teach, saying, Know the Lord, for all shall know me from the least to the greatest. Since God is Spirit, the one and only real mind or power in the universe, and man is a mental or spiritual being, he must relate himself to God through his mental faculties. This is done by recognition and realization of the facts or truth concerning God and man. The heaven of heavens, said Solomon, cannot contain thee, principle. It is impossible to conceive of such a vast idea of God until one's eyes have been anointed to see and one's mind has been opened to spiritual understanding. When we are prepared to forget the things which are behind and reach forward to the things that are before, then will the truth be revealed. When the Spirit of truth is come, he will guide you into all truth, for the Spirit searches all things, yea, the deep things of God. To understand the deeper meaning of divinity, we shall have to use the word principle, which means simply a fact, the fact of God. Principle, then, is the basis of all of our understanding about God and gives us the true or spiritual interpretation of him and his manifestation. When God said to Moses, My presence shall go with thee, he meant that man embodied the fact or principle within himself. It is obvious, therefore, that unless we approach God as principle, we have nothing to demonstrate and no rule of action. St. Paul refers to principle as the all-in-all, eternal, immortal, the only wise. They that worship God must worship him in spirit and in truth. The principle must be spiritually discerned. That is, we must discover and apply it within our own mind. For as the body without the spirit is dead, so the letter killeth, but the spirit giveth life. The principle is therefore the foundation upon which the spiritual temple, God consciousness, is to be built. It is the porch that one must traverse to reach the altar. It is sown in mind a natural or literal world. It is raised up a supernatural or spiritual truth. Ye shall know the truth. Principle is the allness of God, and the truth is that we are one with him. We embody the God qualities within our own minds. We are inseparable as principle and idea. Principle is indivisible. It is perfect unity. It is both cause and effect. The self-knowing mind back of everything, it is that which knows us by what we know about ourselves. That in us which knows is spirit, or the principle of truth. The I am in man is the life or consciousness of man. Without this I am, man could not be. Then, when we understand that the only consciousness we possess and which possesses us is God, we shall be able to demonstrate the principle of truth. It will proclaim itself by means of our own consciousness itself through our recognition and realization of the facts concerning God and man. Principle is life, and life cannot be separated from living. Principle is consciousness, and consciousness cannot be separated from mind. Mind is the only actor in the universe, therefore nothing moves except as mind moves it. The qualifications for the greater things which Jesus promised should be done in his name, principle, as well as release from all unpleasant circumstance, was to be so filled with the Spirit that there would be no room left for anything else. The spiritual, or Christ consciousness only, is substantial. Jesus was a man like other men, but consciousness of his spiritual nature. He differed from other men in that he was one with God on the manifest plane. He recognized that his Christ was the real man of all men, and identical with God. His awareness of the real truth of his being enabled him to do all things. Open thou mine eyes, that I may behold wondrous things out of thy law. Chapter 15. The 5 Activities of Spirit. Fundamental law is the path of righteousness, the way by which the soul of man is restored to its original perfection. Life, love, mind, spirit, and truth are the 5 activities expressed in the one life principle. Life creates, love attracts, mind governs, spirit expresses, and truth sustains. The basic meaning of these 5 aspects or activities of principle is permanence or reality. That which is permanent is real. That which is not permanent is not real. We would summarize then by saying that principle is the mental action and reaction of God upon himself, and we find the purpose of life stated in Jesus' words, that they all may be one, as thou, Father, art in me, and I in thee, that they also may be one in us, even as we are in one. We shall henceforth think of God, then, as the active principle of good within our own minds, a presence to be felt and a power to be utilized. This correct view of God will give us power and dominion over our world. As the Father hath life in himself, so hath he given to the Son to have life in himself. God's life is all life. God's mind is all mind. God's love is all love. God's spirit is all spirit. God's truth is all truth. God's power is all power. God's consciousness is all consciousness. God is both creator and creation. He is the conceiver and the conceived, the thinker and the thought. Understanding the principle, we shall no longer make things by the uncertain and slow process of the sense of human thought, but through the recognition and realization of the presence of all good within ourselves. Living by our principle, it will realize itself in us without any effort on our part. We do not have to take any thought about it. We do not have to worry, struggle, or exert the human will in any way. In thy presence is fullness of joy. We think, then, the truth of Jesus' statement that things are literally added unto those who seek his kingdom first. The Lord is my shepherd, therefore can I lack nothing. The Lord is the law, and the shepherd is our rule of action. The law is impersonal and has no sentiment at all. It does not know we use it nor for what purpose. The law says to electricity, be a light, and it is a light. The law says, run a streetcar, and it runs a streetcar. The law is always obedient to our word. If a man says, I am sick, the law says, I am sick. If he says, I am poor, the law says, I am poor. Just as the law of electricity does not know whether it electrocutes a little child or burns a house down, or whether it makes toast for our breakfast, so principle does not know whether we are using it to make perfect or imperfect creations. Principle is impersonal. The law is a law of liberty, which, because of the way we use it, becomes a law of bondage. But the bondage is never a thing of itself. It is simply the way we are using the law of liberty. We are always dealing with the law, and by harmonizing the 5 activities of spirit, we are seeking to bring spiritual values to bear upon the law. In other words, we are using the law constructively instead of destructively. The theory of emergent evolution is that whenever our nature demands a new experience, there is that within this nature which projects the vehicle, making the experience possible. Before we can use the law constructively, there must be a complete change in our manner of thinking, feeling, and acting. Remembering that the mind of the flesh is not subject to the law of God, we must harmonize our mind with divine mind before there can be any increase of good in our lives. The law of the Lord is perfect, and I will use it righteously.